this tutorial is to show you how to create this grayscale image using Adobe Illustrator. And this is going to be the first of 3 video tutorials that you'll need in order to complete this exercise. And at the end of the exercise, you'll have something like this, which is a full-size colored movie poster. And so, first of all, we are working in Adobe Illustrator. And some people don't like Illustrator, but that's only because they don't know how to use Illustrator. And Illustrator is an incredible program because it makes it easy to edit, makes it very easy. It's very easy to change colors once you have your everything created and built. And also, it's small in file size, and you can scale things up. Like this image right here, for instance, is, and let me just take a look at it here. This image is 7 inches wide by 10.5 inches high. This image has been scaled up to 28.5 inches by 42.5 inches, okay? And it loses absolutely no resolution. Because this is resolution independent, okay? It's vector. The other great thing is this file size is very small. This poster size is actually, and I'm going to pull it up here on my desktop. I'm going to select this, and I'm working on a Mac, so I'm just going to do Command I. This poster is only 1.3 megabytes, which is so tiny. You could airdrop that or email that to someone, okay? So anyway, that's why. That's one of the reasons why we're using Illustrator, okay? So anyway, let's get started here. And what we're going to start doing now is we're going to build this grayscale image, okay? And the reason why we do it in grayscale is because it's actually faster than building in color. Because therefore, we're not thinking about what colors we need to make. We just build it in different percentages of black, and it just speeds things up. Because a long time ago when I used to create illustrations, I realized that when I had like 32 illustrations to make in 1 week, I could not be sitting there thinking about the color as I'm building the shapes. So I just build everything in grayscale and then change the color. And that's what we're going to be doing, okay? So let's get started. First of all, you're going to be needing to change your workspace. And we're going to be working with, if you go to Window and Workspace in Illustrator, you're going to be you want to use Essentials Classics. Now I'm going to reset my workspace so it looks like what you would have if you were first starting out, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this up because this is what you might be seeing right now. You can go File and New, create a new file here, or you can go to File and New here, or you do Command N, and that's what we're going to be needing to do here. And we're going to choose a letter size page. Where you can find that is if you go to Print, you'll see letter. One thing we're going to do differently is our units are going to be changed to inches, okay? And we're going to leave everything else the same. We just want to make sure that we are doing a portrait orientation as far as what our format's going to be, okay? CMYK color, 300 pixels per inch. Let's create that, okay? So next, what you're going to be needing to do is I have uploaded to our D2L class some files, and one of those files you're going to be needing to download, and I'm going to place it here, and I'll talk about the file that you're going to be needing here in just a moment. But we're going to be placing in this Thelma Louise drawing.png, okay? And then what you're going to do is don't do anything else, just select it and then click template. And we're going to place it as a template, okay? Now let's go and look at our layers. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull my layers palette out so that we can work on this independently, because we're going to pull out some other palettes as we go along here, okay? And notice what we see here, and that is we have a template layer and we have layer 1. So this is what happens when you bring it in as a template. Now, let me discuss something here for a moment. A lot of time, and I'm just going to make a new page here quickly. And they'll go file in place. Because a lot of times I'm working so quickly, and I will actually make the mistake of double clicking. And what happens is if you double click or you don't check template, you get this. And so therefore you'd have to place your image like this. And now mind you, Illustrator, there's multiple ways to do things. So if you have accidentally brought in your image by double clicking, you could always go over to layer 1 here, double click it, change this to template. Okay? And then you'd have to create a new layer. And that's how you would do this, okay? I'm just going to close this right now. Now, one other thing I want to discuss briefly, because you're going to be making your own poster design for our project. This is just the exercise. But when I was placing images in, I had a difficult time here. I'm going to actually place an image here, and we're going to go. And what I'm trying to discuss is that there are some bugs with Illustrator. There are some things that just don't work correctly, and this is the image I made, and I didn't save it or anything. And I'm going to place it. We'll place it as a template too. And look how big that thing is. Okay, for some reason it interpreted that is a huge file. I have no idea why. Okay, and then so I saved it as a PNG. I actually made this drawing in Procreate, and I exported it to my photos as a JPEG, and it brings it in this way. I exported it as a PNG, and it kept it to the same size. One other thing is that I actually took this photo, or this image that is, into Photoshop, and I renamed it, and then I resaved it, and we'll do another template here. We'll place another template for a moment here, and we'll see what this one turns out like. Place it as a template, and it brings it in the normal size. So I don't know quite what is happening, but if you're having this issue, when you make your poster, I would suggest that if you're drawing in a program like Procreate or in Photoshop or whatever, save as a PNG. The other thing I did was I changed it to grayscale. I didn't change that one to grayscale, but I did that once, and that seemed to work. Now, the other thing, too, is if for some reason, I'm just going to delete that one, yes. You're still having issues, you can always just resize this thing, and this thing needs to be at 7 inches, and make sure that in this right up here or over here, your properties, you can change it here. You want to make sure that the proportions are constrained, and then we would change that down to 7 inches. And also make sure this is checked here, and you got this little box, and this means it's going to scale down from the center if I have that little dot fixed there, okay? And then I'm just going to go and change it, and boom, it's down to the right size, okay? So I just wanted to point those things out, and I apologize for taking so long to get into this, but Illustrator does some things that just doesn't make sense sometimes, and I blame Adobe for this. So anyway, let's get started after my complaining and showing you some little problems here. You shouldn't have a problem. I'm going to be bringing this in as a PNG, and it should bring in just fine. But like I said, if you have that problem, you can always unlock your file and change its size down to 7 inches wide. That will make the height 10.5 inches high, okay? And why that's important is because we're going to next make a rectangle, okay? So you want to go over to your tool palette here, and we go over to the rectangle, and we're going to click at the top of this. Now one thing is I have my smart guides turned on, okay? And they might not be turned on your version of Illustrator, but if they are, then you can do it. You can change it here. One other thing I'll say too is that if you're working on the iPad, you could possibly make this image in the iPad, but you might not be able to do everything because there are limitations. You can't bring in a picture as a template. You can't make a template. You can fade it back. The image so it's like 50% black, and so it looks faint like this one. But I just want to point that out. I would suggest that you work on a desktop. So you use the desktop version of Illustrator, okay? So let me continue here. So we've got our rectangle tool. I'm going to click anchor here. I'll put it to you this way. I'm moving this around, and my smart guys tell me there's an anchor point right there. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to type in 7 by 10.5. All right. Now, when you're making an image in Illustrator and it has a frame around it, it's usually best to make the frame first. And so this rectangle is going to serve as two things. One is it's going to be the bounding box that we're going to be cropping a lot of shapes with. And the other thing is this is going to be the sky. Okay? And so let's go over to our color palette here. And I'm going to actually pull it out. Okay, and I'm going to close that back up, the color guides. But if we bring over our color palette, and you see these little 3 lines here, that means that they show more options. First of all, we want to work in CMYK. You don't want to be working in grayscale. I tried that, and then I had issues when I was trying to color it. So even though we're working in just grayscale to begin with, use CMYK, all right? Now we're going to come over here, make sure the fill is on top. We're actually going to go and bring the stroke to the top, and we're going to turn the stroke off by going to none. Okay? And then we're going to go over here, and we're going to make this 20% gray, or black, that is. Okay? And so that's the first shape we built. Now, we're going to need to make other shapes, but right now we can't see them because this shape is overlapping our template. Well, we're going to go into what's called outline mode. Outline mode, you can get to it a few different ways. One is you can go to view and then go to outline. And this shows just the vector path, okay? And what I mean by that is if I go over to this image, let's say, or this image right here, and do Command Y, you can see all the vector paths that make up that image, okay? So that's what outline mode does. There's a couple of other ways to get to. Of course, one is going up to view. The next is doing Command Y. And if you do Command Y again, it brings us back to preview. So every time you hit Command Y, it's going to go toggle between preview and outline mode. The way I prefer to work, since I'm working on a desktop and I've got a mouse in my hand, is I like to go hold down the Command key on my keyboard and come over to this layer and click on the eye, and that will toggle the visibility. Now you have to actually hold down your eye, because if you hold down the Command key, because if you don't hold the Command key and click on the eye, what it does is this: it turns the layer off and you can't work. Okay, so that's very important. So we're going to work in outline mode, okay? And so you see this eye and you don't see anything, and you can tell the difference there between outline and preview, okay? Anyway, let's continue on. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build another rectangle to represent the ground. And, we've got smart guides that can tell us where this thing aligns at. But, a lot of times I'm working and I work so fast and I let go of my mouse. And the thing is that this shape probably is not lined up with the other shape. It may be, I don't know. It made a snap to it, it doesn't. But what I prefer to do, because I work so fast, is I like to build my rectangle going outside the image like this. And then we're going to crop it, okay? So once we build a shape, we want to go back to preview mode. So hold down the Command key, click on this eye, And then now we can see that shape. We're going to actually change this color to 40% gray. All right. And now I'm going to hold. Okay, so that shape is selected. I'm going to get my direct selection tool. I mean, not my direct. Well, you could use your direct selection tool, but I'm going to use just the selection tool. Okay. V is a keyboard shortcut, by the way. And we're going to hold down our Shift key and click on that back rectangle. And so both are selected. Now what I'm going to do is I've got my Shift key held down still, and I'm going to hit the M key. Shift and M, bring up this tool, which is the Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder tool is great because you can actually make shapes. You could take two shapes and make one. All right, so let's turn that into one shape. But what I want to do is I want to hold down my Alt or my Option. I say Alt or Option because on my keyboard it says Alt and it says Option. Now, on a PC it may just say Alt, and so that's what, if you're working on a PC, you use the Alt key. I think Option is a Mac term. I don't know. I'm not certain because I don't have a PC on hand right now. I've got a PC laptop upstairs, but I haven't used it in a while. So anyway, hold down that Alt Option key, Alt or Option, or and then you'll see it turns to a minus sign, and then we're going to click here, and it deletes that shape going outside there. Okay, so next we're going to be working with the pen tool. So before we do that, let's go back to outline mode by holding the command key, clicking on the eye, and we're going to get the pen tool, and I'm going to just sort of start out here. The pen tool is a very precise tool. A lot of students, the first time they get it, they start just, they'll start trying to drag it, and they get this, and you get nothing. Okay, because you're just getting a handle. All right. What you got to do to start this is you have to click once, then you move your mouse, or if you're using a Cintiq, you can use a Wacom pen, and basically what we would do is we would move it into position where we would think to go, and then click. Okay. All right. First, there are a couple of things I want to talk about here. One is, you might be asking me, why am I going all the way up in there for this road? Why don't I go around? Well, later I'm going to build the car shape to overlap it, okay? And that's something you've got to start thinking about when you work in Illustrator is, you need to make shapes so they overlap each other, and that's why I'm building this road this way, okay? So I'm just going to click here, click here, click here. Now here's the deal. We need to close our path. And we do that by going back to the first point. And when you do that, you will get a little circle next to your pen there. Okay, right now, if I go over this line, it gets a plus sign because it'd be adding a point. Over here, it's doing nothing. And you see that turns into a 0. When we click, that closes that path. And that's essential when we're making shapes filled with color, because you don't want to have any open paths, because sometimes that can be a problem. And I know that because I've built shapes so fast sometimes that the path is open, and then I might be building a shape on top of it and accidentally click that, and then next thing I know, I don't have the shape I want. My shape is connecting to a shape I previously made. So that is so important. Close your path, all right? Now let's go back to preview mode. We're going to change this color to, let me see here. I'm just looking over at my notes. Well, if I don't have it, I thought I had it written down. I apologize. So let's just go over here. I'll take and I'll just sample it with the eyedropper. I is the keyboard shortcut for eyedropper. It's 60. I didn't have that written down. Huh, interesting. So anyway, we're going to make this at 60%. Sorry about having to do that. All right, so that's 60. Now, let's go on here. Next thing we need to do is crop this. So we're going to crop this shape again. We're going to select it with the selection tool, hold down our Shift key. We'll select the ground shape, and then keep your finger on the Shift key and hit the M key, which will bring up the Shape Builder tool, and then click on the Alt Option key, okay? And We do that. Now we go back here, and we just kind of keep building here, okay? So I always like to go outside when I've got shapes that are on the outside, or I should say touching the border. And mind you, this shape is going to be white. And here's the deal, if we're going to print this, let's say we're going to print this, anything that's white is the absence of ink. So, we wouldn't tell. But, the thing is that I believe in having a shape so that we can edit it later. So, what if this shape isn't white later? What if we make it an off-white? Then you would start to see it. Okay, so that's why I'm going through and cropping everything that comes up to the border. Okay, so Shift M. I just pulled up the shape builder tool, and anyway, let's continue on here. So let's keep building these shapes, and I'll build this one quickly here. Now, it doesn't have to be identical to what the drawing is, because the drawing is just a guide. That's all it is. And as you see, I didn't even talk about going back and forth between preview and outline mode, because I would assume that now you should know what I'm doing. By clicking on this eye, I toggle back and forth. Okay, so now let's build this next for the little line that goes down the middle. And I was going to put more of these dotted lines going back, but then I realized that they're being covered up by the car. So that's why I only have this one here. All right, so Shift M. That is, I did Shift M to bring up the shape builder tool. Now I hold down the Alt key, and then I get rid of that. All right, so let's continue on. I want to go as fast as I can because this can take a little while here. All right, so next I'm going to make this mountain here, and I'm just gonna. One thing you should know is with Illustrator works best when you have a template to work with, because you can actually trace it out. You can also improve the drawing. Now, I've been doing the pen tool with just straight lines, but what I want to talk about is how do we do a curve. So I'm going to make a curve here. And the way you do a curve is, if you're using a mouse, you click and keep your finger down on a mouse button and then pull your mouse, and you get a handle. Okay? If you're on a Cintiq, you just, you click, because when you're moving things around, you want to lift your Wacom pen off the Cintiq, and then you want to touch the Cintiq to make that. But when you do that, don't lift it. Keep it on the Cintiq, and then start to pull, and you get this handle. Okay, so that's how we can make a curve. Now, when it makes a curve, it makes two handles. So if I'm going to go down here, it's going to look unusual like that. Well, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to kill, this is my term, I'm going to delete this second handle. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to pull our pen up to the point, and you see it changes. You see that little V shape that's pointing up next to the pen? That lets me know that we're right on that anchor point. When we click, it will delete that handle, so therefore I can go down and go a different direction, and it's not going to continue that curve, okay? And so that is so key about doing these things. So I'm going to curve this just a slight bit, and then we're going to go back and kill that second handle. Now, you don't always have to kill the second handle. We'll go into that in just a moment. And I'm just kind of going fast here. Now, again, we're going up to this woman's head, and I've known some students that would go around it. Well, as I said before, we are going to be building her on another layer, so we're just going to go straight through her, okay? And therefore, we'll overlap it. You've always got to think about overlapping your shapes. I'm going to take this down past the ground and then go back out like this, Go back out here and then come back in and close our path. Wait for that little circle there and close it. Then we go back to the eye and over here on the layers. We'll hold down the command key, click on this eye. All right, so this mountain needs to be the same value as the road. And the way we can do that is we can click on the eye on our keyboard, which will bring up the eyedropper right here. And we can click on the road and it will change its color. Okay. Actually, it needs to be, let's see, the mountain's going to be 50%, the shadow is going to be 60. Okay. All right. I'm just looking at my notes. Sorry about that. And I'll just take a peek over here and see if that's close enough. We can always alter it. All right. So let's crop it. So before I go anywhere, I toggled back to outline mode like I was going to draw something else. Well, what I want to do is let's select this mountain shape and select the sky, the big rectangle we started with. Shift M, hold down the Option key, click there. Now we need to move this mountain so that it is below the ground and above the sky. And there's a few ways to move it, okay? If we go to Object, we can go Arrange, and we can send to back, we can send backwards. All right, we can go Object, and we can go Send to Back, and that brings it all the way to the back there. Okay, and it should have actually sent it to the back of everything. There we go. Yes, it should. Well, anyway, it's setting it right there where I want. All right, here's a problem. First of all, this was a mistake that I just made, and I wanted to talk about this. I have it on my sticky note on my computer. This is called isolation mode. And if you encounter this, what's happened is you've double-clicked on a shape, and it isolates it. Well, the way you get out of it is by using this arrow over here, back one level, okay, and back again. And now, if you look at our layers, everything pops up. The other way to get out of it is over here. You'll say exit isolation mode. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because I was working on this the first time, and I plopped in my template, and my image was really large, and I was trying to move it, and I isolated it, and then I tried to get out of isolation mode by using the arrows, and it wouldn't do it. It was stuck. I don't know what happened, so I found out that, hey, it's over here, and that's why I'm telling you this, okay? So anyway, let's continue on. So that's one way we can send it back. Now, I'm going to undo what I did with sending it back here, okay? So the other way we can do it is we can go to our sublayers here, okay? So underneath our layers, if we click on this little arrow, it lets us see all the sublayers, all the other shapes built on this. And this is another way we can move an object. Now, this works really well if you have only a few layers a few shapes on one layer. And so, but sometimes I have like 50 or 60 shapes within one layer. That's 50 or 60 sublayers, and it's really hard to find where to go. So, if you're working with a few shapes, this is a good way to move it. I'm going to show you one other way to move it, and this is the way I use most of the time. And I learned this from a friend of mine, and because I was like trying to figure out how to sandwich something. So what we do is we select the shape and we cut it, Command X, and then we click on, because we're going to paste it. We can paste it. We can paste in front or paste in back. Those are three options when we paste something, okay? And I don't know why it's not showing up here, but anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to select the sky layer and do Command F, and that's paste in front, okay? And so it puts it right there. Now, the other thing I could do is click on the ground shape and paste in back, which is Command B. So, if you've got 40 some odd layers on your layer here, or 40 some odd shapes within a layer, and you're trying to move one shape in between two shapes, this is the quickest way to do it, okay? So anyway, let me continue on. We're going to go back to outline mode, and then we're going to get our pen tool, and I'm going to draw this shape next. And this is a shadow shape. And like I was saying, you know, our template is just a guide. We don't have to, we can make it better, we can change it, you know, because a lot of times I'll do a quick drawing and I'm not happy with it, and then I go into Illustrator and I'll improve it. And that's something you can do when you're working in Illustrator. So I'm just playing around here. I'm adding some curves in. All right, so I could go down here and just finish it, but what I'm going to do is there's another little area right here, so I'm going to go back up in here. I just did Command Z, by the way. Command Z is undo. And if you move your pen in a way, you can always undo it like that. Okay, so now let's go on down here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just roughen this just a little bit here. I might go a different way with this. Just something like that. All right, so now I'm going to go, and we're going to go below the horizon line, or, you know, somewhere like that. We're going to go outside our picture. Okay, we're going to go outside of the mountain shape and go back into it right up here, and then we'll close this path, okay? And by clicking on that last point there, I've actually curved it a little bit. So now let's take a look at this shape. And this shape needs to be 60%. Actually, you know what? My mountain is supposed to be 50. I apologize. I'm going to go back here, turn this to 50. I was wondering why that was so dark. Okay, so our mountain's going to be 50. Our shadow is going to be 60. And then what we're going to do is select the shadow and the mountain like this, and then do Shift M, and then do Alt Option key, hold that down and click, and we get rid of that. Now we're going to need to move this. So again, I'm going to, because you see where it's at, I'm going to cut it, Command X. So you got, and when you cut it, you want to use the main selection tool, because if you use the direct selection tool and you cut, Command X, if you're not clicked inside the shape and you have one anchor point selected, what it will do is it will cut that line, okay? Now, I'm using the direct selection tool, but I'm going to click inside. We'll come over here. We'll click inside the shape, and then we do Command X, and it will cut the entire shape, okay? So that's something to keep in mind if you have the direct selection tool you're using. I'm going to click on the mountain shape and do Paste in Front, Command F. All right, so now, oh, there's one other area I missed. So I'm going to select both of those again, Shift M, and cut that part off, okay? I missed that. Okay, so let's continue on. I'm going to make this shape. I'm going to start working with, hold on, just 1 second. I'm going to, and by the way I moved this was, you got a grabber hand, and that will move things around. But the keyboard shortcut for the grabber hand is the space bar. And why I like using that is because if you're using the pen tool and then you want to move and you hit the space bar and then you move your image and then you let go of the space bar, it goes back to the pen, which is awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to draw this cloud, and I'm going to use a different tool. Now, if you're using a Cintiq or a Wacom tablet, the pencil tool is a very good tool to use when you're drawing, because what the pencil tool does is it just draws. Now I'm in outline mode, so that's very important. But what we do is we're just going to draw here. And actually, before you start drawing, I should discuss something here. We'll see when I get done here in just a second. Go outside the shape, come back in. And see, that's really quick. But one thing you want to do is double click your pencil tool and make sure that all these boxes are checked. Because for some reason, I was working the first time and fill new pencil strokes was not checked. So when I went to preview mode, there was, basically, it had no shape. It was like this. Okay? And so if it's deselected, you've lost your shape. It's still there. It's still there. It's just we can't see it because there is no shape or fill. Okay? So that's what I'm saying is make sure if you're using the pencil tool, you make sure all these are checked. They're very important boxes, especially this one right here too. Option key toggles to smooth tool. All right. The other thing too is the fidelity up here. If you want to have more anchor points and to be more jagged, then we want to actually go to more accurate, and so that will increase the number of anchor points that it puts in. If you want it to be smoother, you just drag this over here. Usually I keep it in the center here, okay? And then there's other little features here too. Close path when it's within 15 pixels, which is a good idea. So once you're getting close within 15 pixels, it'll automatically close that path, which is what you want to happen, okay? So anyway, let's continue on here. And we'll color this white. And we'll crop it. So I'm going to select the sky, hold down my shift key, select the sky, do shift M, option, whoops, something happened here. All right, hold down my shift key, get the sky, shift M, yeah, okay, now it's working. Okay, so the other thing too is that if we want to go back and improve this shape, because let's say you drew it and there's things you want to make a little different, you can always go back in here and redraw. And it will change it. Now if we go to outline mode, you'll see it too. Let's zoom in here with the magnifying glass. N is a keyboard shortcut for a pencil, by the way. And you can use it with a mouse. It just makes it, but it just works easier with a Wacom tablet or a Cintiq. So when you change the direction of your line, let's say I want to make this just a little different here. I just ran into a mistake there, and that is I created another line. I'm going to have to undo, Command Z. You've got to start off within the line, and that's what I thought I was doing. And therefore, it will actually alter it, okay? And so we'll go back here. We'll just do this. All right. So, let's say I was making something, adding more and more poofiness to my cloud if I wanted to do that. Oops. See, again, for some reason, it drew another line. And I can tell that because I see two lines there. Do undo, Command Z. And make sure you're in here. Try this again. Now it worked, okay? So those are things you might run into. Now, the other thing, too, is, as I mentioned, the Alt key, if you click on the Alt Option key, which does so much, we're going to be using that key for so many things for other tools, is it alters it to a smooth tool. So therefore, it will take out points and make it smoother, okay, as it goes along here. All right, and you could do this when you've got this. If you want to add more points, you can add more points. There's this little feature that pops up here, okay? All right, so let me just undo all that because I kind of liked the way it drew it to begin with. But I just wanted to show those things to you so that you'll know how to use this pencil tool, because I'm going to start using this pencil tool more and more because it's a faster way to draw. I like using the pen tool when I'm drawing some very precise things. When I'm so I go back and forth between the two. All right, so let's draw this shape here. I'm using, and you can use your pen tool, but I'm going to use my pencil tools because it'll speed me up here. And I just want to make sure I'm far out here, so we're going to crop that. So let's go back to preview mode and hit the V key for the selection tool. Click on the sky, do Shift M, and then hold down the Alt Option key and click, boom. Okay, now let's go back here. There's one other shape I got to build on this layer, and that is this background mountain. And the one thing the pencil tool doesn't do well is the sharp corners. So we'll see how this looks, because I might want to draw this with my pen tool. But like I said, I like using this. I didn't do a bad job. I think I can live with that. Now the thing is here, yeah. So we can zoom in a little closer there. If I want to get more precise, I can do something like this. Unfortunately, I'm not having to undo that. Yeah, that looks good. So sometimes I get really picky and I really like to have things a certain way. You know, like maybe make it more like that. Okay. So this is my problem when I'm doing demos, is I really get involved with the artwork. I really enjoy making art. All right, so we want to change this to this color, so I'll just use the eyedropper. We're going to have to do a couple things here. We're going to have to select the background. We're going to have to crop it, Shift M. So we select both shapes, and then we do Shift M, and then we do Option key and get rid of that. And now we're going to deselect. And deselecting, you can get the selection tool and click outside of here, and then go back in. There's other ways to deselect too. One is Shift Command A is deselect. Okay. I know that's an awkward keyboard shortcut, but usually I keep my fingers around those keys all the time because I'm using the Command key a lot. Anyway, we're going to cut this, Command X. We're going to select the sky, or let's select the ground, and then do paste in back, Command B. And boom. All right, so now we've done that, and now let's continue on. And I'm going to make the telephone poles, or the power lines. I call them telephone poles. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. And the way we make a new layer is if we click on this plus sign next to new layer, it'll make a new layer. The other way is if we go over here, we go new layer, okay? Anyway, a couple things are happening here is, let me just turn off layer 1 here. And we can start making this power line pole. And I'm going to use the rectangle tool to draw it with, okay? And I need to zoom out here, not zoom out, at least move this down here. All right, so one thing that Illustrator does that bugs me is that green. You know, the second layer it makes in your file, it makes it this pale lime green, and it's just so hard to see. So if you're having that problem, you can double click your layer, and under here is color. This is not the color of the shape, it's the color of the layer selections. And we can change this to something much darker. We can change it to black if we want to. All right. And therefore, and I think it changed it to, yeah, there, it changes to black finally. All right, so therefore it makes it a lot easier to see. All right, so let's zoom in here. And we're in preview mode, because I can see the color of the shape, which is fine. We'll need to eventually toggle back to outline mode. But using my pencil tool, not my pencil tool, my pen tool, I apologize. We want to keep the shape selected, and we're going to go and we're going to add another point. And if you notice there, when I get to the line, you get a plus sign. Okay. Now, if you're not getting the plus sign, you want to go into your settings and go general, and make sure that this is unchecked. Disable auto add and delete, okay? I'm going to uncheck this thing right here because I'm going to have problems later if I don't. And I'll talk to you about that because this is very important, the scale, strokes, and effects. But anyway, let me just add this point here. Now, if you also go over to your pen tool, you'll see this little triangle at the bottom, that little dog ear. That means that there's more tools up underneath. Okay? And mind you, a lot of this stuff can be done with keyboard shortcuts. So I didn't even have to use a keyboard shortcut. I just added that line there because it automatically does that. The next thing I want to do is, while that point is still selected, I'm going to use my arrows on my keyboard and just toggle this down. Okay? Now, the next thing I do is I want this tool here. This is the anchor point tool. It used to be called the convert anchor point tool, but they changed the name. hit the Alt key instead, and it converts it to that. So while you're using the pen tool, if you hit the Alt or Option key, that is, and you click and drag, this will actually create two handles. Now I'm going to have to untangle this. All right, like that. And then let go of your mouse button, and then let go. And when you let go of the Option key, it goes back to your pen tool. I have my hand on the space bar. That's what I was doing to move that quickly. All right, so same thing here. We'll move this up. Hold down the Option key and just drag this out. Now this time it's not tangled, and it's hard to tell why that is. I think it's it's just if it's tangled, you got to untangle it. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is we're going to make this telephone pole here 80% black. Okay, and then which makes it almost to the same value as the template. And by the way, if you're drawing, and we'll go to outline mode again here. If you're drawing and you're having a hard time seeing your vector path, you can always double click your template layer, and where it says dim images, we can dim that to 30% or even 20%, and this may help you see things a lot easier. Okay, so anyway, and I see that my pole's a little thicker. I'm going to actually just move this line here. And what I'm doing is just moving a line, and I click on the line and move it. If I want to move an anchor point, I can do this, which distorts it. But anyway, I just want to tell you what I was doing there. Let's go on. Let's use the pen tool. We'll use this and make this shape. Go back to preview mode. Yep, it made. And the reason why is because, I'll have some students that will just draw and draw and draw, and they won't go back to preview mode, and then they can't see anything because their shapes are all the same color. So that's why I keep going back and forth. Anyway, I'm using the pen tool. I'm going to make this shape. I'm actually going to improve it because I noticed in the finish I didn't like how the shape was. So we're going to just improve it just a little bit by moving that out there. Okay, so now I've got those. Now let's come up and we're going to make these little things that are they supposedly hold the power line. Okay, and I'm going to use the ellipse tool to make that. Okay, so let's zoom in enough. And the ellipse tool, by the way, the keyboard shortcut is L. That will bring up the ellipse tool. Anyway, we're going to draw an ellipse like this, okay? I'm going to go back to outline mode. So I'm going to hold down my command key, click on the side. All right, so I'm going to alter this path just a little bit by pulling this up and maybe pulling this up here. So we'll alter what the path looks like. Okay, we're going to get another one here. And notice this, it's like when I'm drawing this shape, it's hard to see, I know that, because I'm going to make my template even lighter. I'm going to go down to 20%. And the reason why is because, I've got this ellipse tool here. I got to go back up to my layer. And that's something that's so important, is being on the right layer. Because right now, there we go. Now I can draw. So anyway, I don't know if you see that magenta line, but that is indicating to me, it's my smart guy telling me that I am lining up with the center of the other ellipse down there. I'm going to just use that, and I'm going to hold down my Alt Option key again. And this time when I'm drawing my circle, it draws it out from the center. Okay, so again, if you're drawing circles, you can draw them like this, or if you hold down your Alt key, you'll draw it from the center. Just to let you know, okay? All right, now let's get my pen tool. I'm going to make this shape here. And then let's go to, and let's maybe even that out a little bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these three shapes and I'm going to combine them. All right. Now, I can use the shape builder tool, but there's another way to combine these things, and I'm going to go up under Window, and there's Pathfinders. I'm looking for the Pathfinder tools, okay? The Pathfinder tools does a lot of the things that the shape builder tools, but a little bit more. And the first button is actually Unite. So I can click that, and it's a little quicker than using the shape builder tool for some things like this, okay? And I just want to point that out because I use the shape builder tool sometimes when I need help with making things. Anyway, we're going to take this shape, and I'm going to copy and paste it over here. But instead of doing Command C, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this shape. Okay, I'm in preview mode because the shape has color, so it makes it easy. I can just click inside. And I'm going to move this shape, but while I'm moving it, I'm going to hold down the Alt-Option key, and notice it copies it. Okay, so if we need to make a copy of something, we can quickly copy it by starting to move it, and then hold down the Alt-Option key. Now here's the deal: you gotta let go of the mouse button first, or you gotta take your, if you're using a Wacom pen and Cintiq or Wacom tablet, you gotta take your pen off the board, and then let go of the Alt-Option key. Okay, so now that's what we have, and I'm actually going to unite these shapes here for the pole. I'm going to keep these separated, and the reason why is because what if I wanted to make those darker than the pole? You know, if I wanted to make them black, you know, I could do that. So that's why I'm thinking down the road if I want to have more color in my image. So now what we're going to do is we're going to select this. I'm going to start to move it. So first of all, I'm going to group it. Let's just group it, okay? Command G groups it. And if you want to know about this, it's up here. You see group. It shows you Command G is group. Command Shift G is ungroup, okay? Anyway, let's start to move this thing down, and we'll hold down their Alt-Option key so that we'll actually duplicate it. I'll let go of the mouse button, and then let's just scale this thing down. And when we scale it down, hold down the Shift key, okay? I'm also holding down the Alt key because what it's going to do is drag it down towards the center there. Okay, there we go. We'll zoom in here, get the V key, which is the selection tool, and just move this into place. That's pretty close. I mean, if we want it to be exact, I can actually move things with my arrow keys on my keyboard. All right, so next we're going to start building the car, okay? So now this is what we got built. And mind you, it's a little odd that that's sitting down there, but the car is going to overlap all that stuff. So let's make a new layer by going down here, create new layer. And we're going to start naming our layers. First of all, let's name the first layer 1. Name that one background. So double click inside there and you can title that. This layer 3 is going to be changed to just say poles. Okay. And then this layer 4 will be car. And I think it's very important to start naming your layers after a while, okay? The other thing I want to do is I want to save this. I haven't saved. And I should be talking about saving earlier, and I meant to. But anyway, it's important to save your work. Sometimes there are power outages. I've seen that happen. I've totally lost work because I just never saved it. So we're going to go to File, and we're going to Save As. You can save it to your cloud document, or I'm going to save it on my computer. Okay? And when we save it, we'll name this Thelma Louise. Okay, Louis. Grayscale. And that's what you'll name yours. Now, I have so many grayscale versions here. I'm going to call this one 3 because that's what it is. And we're just going to save it as an Illustrator document. Now, there are other options to save this thing as up under here. We can save it as an EPS. We can save it as a template, okay? We can save it as a PDF. If you ever need to make a PDF out of an Illustrator file, this is where you can do it. And then, of course, we've got SVG, that is. So anyway, we'll be just using the Illustrator document file. But anyway, we'll save it. All right. Now, if you're working at home and you come to the school, you want to make sure you're working with the same versions, okay? Sometimes they'll update Illustrator. Right now I'm doing Illustrator 2020. I think that's fine. But you could also, sometimes you can save it down, and that's fine because what we're doing could be done in Illustrator 8. Just to let you know. And it won't hurt anything. Sometimes if I'm trying to play around with file size, I'll save it down, or if I'm needing to send it to somebody, because I've had clients that have had different versions of Illustrator, and they didn't have the same version as I did, and I had to save it at a lower version. So that's the reason why I'm pointing this out. Okay, all right. So anyway, we can embed permitted fonts for the file if we want to. We can include linked files. Okay, so if you got your template in there, you don't want to lose your template, we can include that. We'll click OK, and it saves it. All right, and now we're safe. Now we can start working on the car. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've saved it, I'm going to turn off my pole layer and my background layer, and we're going to zoom in here. And it looks like I've been talking for some time. I apologize for taking so long, but I like to be thorough. We're going to get our rectangle tool. M is a keyboard shortcut, by the way. I don't always use my keyboard shortcut for that. And we're going to build the tail light assembly of this car. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to make a rectangle. Let's go to outline mode. Hold down the command key, click on that. And then we're going to get the pen tool. And again, we're going to wait until we get the signal there. I know I hate the color. I'd like to know how to change that color. And if I figure that out, I'll let you know. It should be a way to change it, because that magenta is so hard to see on top of that. But anyway, I'm going to click and add a plus sign. Wait until the pen tool is a plus sign, then add an anchor point. And then I'm just going to drag this out. I'm going to hit the A key. The A key is the direct selection tool. And then I'm just going to drag this out, and if I hold down my shift key, it will constrain it so I can't accidentally move it up or down. So we're going to kind of do like that. All right. I'm going to come over here, get my pen tool again, and do the same thing. I'm waiting for the signal there. Okay, so that it tells me I'm aligned, and then I'm going to start to move it and hold on my shift key as I'm moving. Okay, mind you, I switched to the A key. I use the A key to bring up the direct selection tool. All right, so this shape is an interesting shape here. And in fact, I'm going to include another file in our D2L class so you can see what I'm attempting to make here. And we're just going to place this. I'm going to let's make a new layer here. We'll call it reference, because you can bring in reference pictures to help you out when you're working on a project. And we're going to place, let's see if I can find it here. You should, download all this stuff and put it on the desktop so you can find things easily. I'm going to include this file here, 1966 Ford Thunderbird, okay? And we're not going to place it as a template, okay? We're just going to place it. And we're going to just click. And right now we can't see it because that's in outline mode, but we'll go back to preview mode for this. And now you can see the reference picture I was using to make this and to draw it. And so, I always like to have it kind of up in case, I'm working, so I can see, what I couldn't see when I was drawing it. It just sort of helps, but it's a good idea to have something like this up. And anyway, let's continue on. And we're going to go down to the car here, and we'll turn that off later. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get my pen tool, and I'm going to make a shape that cuts into it like this. By the way, when I went across here, I held down my shift key. If you have the pen tool and you hold down your shift key, it will constrain it so it goes straight up or down. It can also do a 45-degree angle, okay? But anyway, hold down the shift key, click there, and then we're going to come back out here. And let's go back to preview mode for a minute here, okay? We'll change the color of this for the moment just so we can see it. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this shape and reflect it. And that's something we haven't used yet. The reflection tool is up underneath the rotation tool. Usually you'll see the rotation tool first. Okay, usually it's set like that. But it's here, not zero, but O. The O key is the keyboard shortcut for the reflection tool, okay? And the reflection tool works like this. If you hold down the Alt Option key, I know it's kind of hard to see there, but I'm going to hold that down. You see that? Those three little dots at the bottom there. I'm going to hold it again. I'm taking it off and on. All right. So what this does is this will activate the options. So when I click, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to aim for the center here of this shape here. And I'm just going to click. Now, if I'm in outline mode, let's do Command Y, there's a little X that shows me the center of that shape. Because I built that with a rectangle. And if I built that with the pen tool, it wouldn't give me that little X. But it's a tiny little X. You can hardly see it there. Anyway, I'm going to click, hold down the Alt Option key, and click. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here. Now, this is the reflection tool here. We can reflect it. We could alter this, okay? Or we could just do it as a horizontal, which is what we really want to do right there. Now, you could click OK, but we want to just click copy. So what it does is it will copy it. So this is a very handy tool to use when you're building things. I'm going to move this up a bit. And then let's go back to preview mode. And we're going to select all these shapes. And do Shift M to bring up the shape builder tool. And I'm going to get rid of these shapes now. So now I've got this. Okay. Now, I'm going to make this inner line here. And, you know, this thing has some thickness. I'm not going to make all the detail there. But what I'm going to do is, in my drawing you can see it, where it looks like there's another shape inside of that. Well, I want to simply do another shape by copying this shape, Command C, and then do paste in front. Okay. Now that shape was selected, so I've actually by pasting in front, it made another shape like that. I'm going to move that back down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with strokes. Okay. So let's go over to our palette here, our color palette, and first thing we'll do is we'll change this to white. Okay. And then we've got this little arrow here. It's over here too. We can swap fill and stroke. So we're going to swap the fill and stroke. So now the fill is none and the stroke is white. Okay. And then let's go and find our stroke palette. Okay. So let's bring this over here. I'm going to move this here, my pathfinders. And here's the stroke palette. And the stroke palette works very well. I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to tuck it and affix it to that. And see, it just sort of clung onto that. And mind you, this is how I grew up, or 30 years ago when I started using Illustrator, they had the stroke underneath the color palette. So I'm just in the habit of arranging this way. We want to go over here to these to show options, so we can actually see our options for the stroke. Okay. The other thing I want to do is since I'm starting to arrange my palettes, I'm going to pull out the gradient palette and put it here, and I'm going to pull out the transparency palette and tuck it in here too, because this was how things were set up, because a lot of this stuff works very well with the color palette. Okay, so when you're using a stroke, it's good to come down here. The other thing I'm going to do is we're going to add the swatches palette. I'm going to add it to the color palette here, So now we can go back and forth and kind of swap things out as we need to. But anyway, that's how I'm going to set my palettes up. Anyway, next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add a 4-point stroke to this. And we're going to align the stroke inside. So it's like that. Okay. So now I've got two different shapes here. One's for the stroke and one is for the color. And this, now I could have put that stroke on the color shape, but when I'm trying to color things later, it makes my job a little easier if they're separated, okay? All right, now let's go and continue building this. So go to outline mode. I'm going to build this shape next. Get my pen tool, add an anchor point there, and then move this out. Now, the other way I can move it too is with my arrow keys. I think that was about 5 clicks there. Wait, see, I was too fast there. I added that first anchor point, and I wasn't waiting for that little magenta guide there to show me that I was in the center. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess so. I don't know. I lost count there. Sorry about that. But I think it's about 5 clicks there. All right, so let's go back to preview mode. And this one, we want to swap this, and we were going to make this body of the car. I'm looking on my notes here. What did I have it as? Car bodies 20%. So we're going to make this 20%. There. Okay. Now, let's. Well, the other thing I missed out on and I didn't do. I'm going to go back here. We'll keep this here, okay? But I meant to do something. I'm going to select both of these shapes here, and that is the first shape and the shape of the stroke. And I'm going to get my direct selection tool. And I want to round these. And I'm going to round them at the same time. I meant to do this earlier on. But we're going to round those. And so that's one of the benefits to making this with the rectangle tool, is it gives you these little options where these little circles pop up when you use the direct selection tool when the shape is selected. And because I have both shapes selected, it's doing it to both of them. Okay? And I apologize for having to go back there and do that, but I forgot to do that. All right, for this one, we're not going to do that with. So this one, what we're going to do is we're going to copy, paste in front, swap out the fill and stroke, make the stroke white here. And let me see, what is the... I think this one is something like 3 points. So this is going to be 3 points, and it's going to be drawn from the inside. Okay, good. All right, so let's continue on here. Hold down my go to outline mode. Sorry about that. I was trying to explain what I was doing. Let's go and make another rectangle here, and this will be for the tail light itself. And again, I'm going to get my pen tool, and I'm going to click here. And I'm waiting to see the line up there. And I'm just going to... I forgot to nudge this over. But we'll go back over to here. We'll hold the A key down and get this one. So it's a lot of repetition here. And it looks like this is a little close. So I'm going to select both of these. Now, to select more than one anchor point, you just hold down the Shift key and use the direct selection tool. And I'm going to tuck this in there. Like that. Okay, good. And you can see it lines up better. All right, so that shape is going to be our brake setting, and I think that one is, well, let's go. I'm just going back here to see here. This one is set for 80. Okay, so we'll set this shape up with no stroke, but with a fill of 80. Okay, now let's go in here, and we are going to go to outline mode and create this. So this is the same thing over and over again. Okay, we're going to take the rectangle tool, and I'm actually going to click on one of these. I'm going to aim for the center of that. I see the little X there, and I'm going to hold down the Alt Option key as I'm dragging out this rectangle like this. Okay. Then I'm going to go and get the pen tool and wait until I get the signal for that to show me the center. I'm going to go back here and wait until, yeah, there you go. I got the little magenta line showing me that. And I'm making it a little different, but let's zoom in here. And we're going to move the whole thing. I'm going to use the direct selection tool. I'm sorry. I like it the way my drawing is set up. So this is close. It's going to be a little off from the other, but that's fine. There we go. Okay, now let's go and back to preview mode after we make this, and this is going to have a stroke, and the stroke is going to be white right now. We can actually make it let's see, did I make it white? Yeah, I made it white there, I think. I'm just double checking all this. Yeah. All right. So, apologize for taking my time there doing that. But anyway, let's go back here, and that stroke is going to be, I don't know. Right now it's 1. Let's see what it looks like at 2. Yeah, we'll keep it at 1 point right now. And we can do 1 point something. We can do, when you're making stroke, we do 1 and then hit the period, 0.2. We can always do that if we need to, all right? I just wanted to show that. Anyway, let's go back to outline mode. We're going to make this shape here. And it's a line that has a point at the end. And we'll get our pen tool. And when we're zoomed all the way out, it shows me where the center is when I'm actually adding an anchor point to that line. And then I'm just going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And do the same thing on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Good. Now I'm going to make this shape here. It's kind of a triangular shape, which goes back up inside and across. If I'm going straight across, hold down the Shift key. And if we look at, now my drawing didn't include it, but if we look at our car reference here, it's a little pixelated because we're zoomed in so far. I'm trying to move around here. But this thing is kind of like an eagle. So I'm going to make a shape here. I'm going to zoom into here. And we'll just make another shape. No, it added a point there. There we go. All right, so I'm going to make a shape kind of like that. Now let's go to preview mode here and take a look at this. Oh, these need to be, well, this first shape here. See, this is the problem when you start building things, you don't go back to preview mode, is this shape needs to be just a fill, and these shapes need to be just, we're going to swap that out. There we go. Okay. All right. So, and this line needs to be a line stroke inside. Okay. Something like that. Now, I'm going to move this up a little bit. We'll zoom in here. And I'm trying to improve this. To add a point there. Now, if we use our pen tool, we're going to get rid of that point. We'll just go over it, hover over it, and it will delete that point. So now we've got something, to me it looks more like a chicken. Maybe if I move it up like that, it starts to look more like an eagle. Alright, so anyway, I am going to combine all these things so that all these shapes I just built are all one shape. and therefore I can color them much quicker later on if I want to make them a different color. So the deal is we got to select all these shapes, and I'm going to run into an issue here because one of them is a stroke. So if I take all those shapes and use my Pathfinder tool to unite, okay, remember the Pathfinder tool, I left it up, and if you closed it, remember, go up under Window, look for Pathfinder. I'm going to hit the first button, Unite, and it does this. And the reason why is because that shape there has a stroke and the rest have fills. But you know what? We can turn this stroke into a shape. So I'm going to select that shape and go to Object, Expand Appearance. And what it does is it turns it into a shape. Okay? So it's up under Object, Expand Appearance, and that will turn it into a shape. And then I'm going to select these other shapes here. Now I'm going to hit Unite, and boom. All right, that's all one. All right, so let's continue on. We're getting close here. I'm sorry for taking so long. It just takes a long time to explain everything. I'm going to get my pen tool and draw this a little bit. We'll curve it just a slight bit, and then we'll go back and kill that handle. And then we'll come up here, do the same thing, just curve it just a little bit. Then we'll go into the taillight assembly. And then this shape, every time you build a shape, you should always go back to preview mode. So this shape needs to be 20%. Okay, and then we'll send it to the back. And the way we're going to send it to the back this time is do Shift Command and left bracket, and that's the brackets. You got brackets right next to the P key on your keyboard. We're going to do left bracket, and that'll send it to the back there, okay? All right, now go back to outline mode. We're going to make our license plate. You see those little circles? We're going to go up to those and drag that in so it curves that, okay? And go back to preview mode. Now this needs to be white. Okay. Go back to outline mode. And we're going to make another rectangle for this top portion here. Go back to preview mode. We'll make that the same color as this. Actually, I see a mistake I made. Shift M. We'll get this. And we'll delete that. And that is, I actually, if we go back to here, I'm noticing that that part is black. So let's go back into here and click that. And that should be black. Okay. Good. So now, I think it's time to build the tires. Okay. So we're just going to build one tire and reflect it. It makes our job a lot easier. Okay. So let's get the pen tool. And we'll click somewhere up in here into the car body. We come down, make a curve, kill that second handle, come straight across, hold the shift key, then make another curve. Remember, we're making curves by clicking and holding on the mouse and pulling. I switch back and forth between a mouse and a pen while I'm working. And then go back and close that path. Okay? So now, that should be black. All right, we are going to reflect this because it's not symmetrical on both sides, but I want this tire to look like that tire, so we'll reflect it. We'll get the reflection tool, hold down that little option key so it will reflect it, and we'll click on the mouse, and then we got to do it vertically like this, okay? And then hit copy. And it did a good job. I'm just going to move it, nudge it just a little bit with my arrow key so it lines up there. Okay, good. Now, let's drag this up here, but hold down the Alt Option key as you're dragging it, and it will duplicate it. And then we need to make this smaller, and we might need to go to outline mode when we're making it smaller. So let's zoom in here. And I'm actually going to distort it just a little bit too. Like that. Okay, and then let's get the reflection tool. Again, hold down the Alt Option key and aim towards the middle. I'm looking at the middle of my license plate right now, sort of. And then we'll click copy. Okay, and so there. And then I'm just going to nudge it over to where the drawing's at, like that. And then let's go and see here. We're gonna send all these shapes to the back. So Shift Command left bracket will send it to the back of that. All right. Okay, now let's build the tailpipe, and we're gonna have to reflect it. So I'm just going. I'm in preview mode. Let's go to outline mode here. We're going to deselect everything. Shift Command A will deselect. And we're going to just draw this kind of shape here. Okay. Now let's get the main selection tool and have the whole thing selected, because by the way, if you have just one anchor point selected, and I'm going to reflect this, it'll do something really weird like that. Okay, and that's dragging that all the way over, and let's look at it in preview mode so you can see what I'm talking about here better. It'll do that, and so you got to have the whole shape selected, and then we can reflect it. Now I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and use my reflection tool and copy it, and it's pretty close. I can use the arrow keys to move it in a little bit. Okay, and then the last thing I do is we got to make a rectangle here, and we're going to take all these shapes and send them to the back. Shift Command left bracket. Okay, we'll send them all the way to the back here. And if we want to make this shape just go down a little bit more, we can. All right. Good. All right, so the hard parts are done. Now we gotta just build the windshield, the girls, and the cast shadows, and we'll be done here. Okay, so let's make another layer. And I'm going to make the layer, put it in the wrong place for the moment here, because we're going to do the windshield, because I want to talk about moving layers. I'm not spelling it right. It's okay. Your spelling doesn't have to be correct. All right, now, first thing I notice is this new layer is this light color, which I hate. It makes it hard to see on the screen, so I'm going to change that to a dark blue. So my shapes, my anchor points are going to be darker. And then I'm going to stay in preview mode for a minute. And see, the reason why we need to stay in go to outline mode is because other times you can't see what to do. So I could make that into a stroke, but I'm going to just make a shape. I'm going to go back to outline mode. Go straight across. Hold down the Shift key. Down. We'll zoom in here. And I don't think the shape is that bad. Doesn't have to be perfect. Meaning it doesn't have to align just right with that. Okay, so right now this layer is above our car layer. So when we move, we're going to move the layer now. And what I want to talk about is when you're moving a layer, we can rearrange these things, but be careful, because you could accidentally put a layer inside another layer, which makes it a sub-layer, which might be something you want, but if it isn't, then it's hard to get back out. Okay, see, I can't even undo, it won't even let me undo that. So I'm dragging that out. So when you're dragging layers, make sure you wait until you see the blue line in between the layers and then let go, okay? Now let's continue on. We'll go to outline mode on this, and we'll make this shape here. Kill that handle. Then I'm going to get my rectangle tool, and I'm going to distort it a little bit by just clicking with the direct selection tool and moving this up just a little bit. And actually, we might move this down so our mirror looks like it's tilted a little bit in. So I'm changing it from the drawing, which is fine. You can do that. Let's use, well, actually, you know what? We want to select all of it, then go back to our direct selection tool so we get those little circles. We'll just do that. Now let's go to preview mode and see what we got here. Okay, so we got that. Now I'm going to copy the shape, paste in front. We'll make it lighter. I think we should probably make that about 20%. If I don't know, then we can always go in here and check. I think that's what this is set at. Yeah, well, it's actually 30%, but we'll keep it at 20. Okay, and then we're going to scale it down, but this time I'm not going to hold down my shift key. I'm just moving it. So we get something like that. All right, now we're going to make another layer for the women, or the passenger and the driver. Okay, and now, well, first of all, well, let's go back down to the windshield. Well, actually, you know what? I want to show you something here. So I'm going to make a shape, and then I'm going to, I'm going to use the circle tool. I'm going to make the steering wheel. Okay, and I'm just distorting it a little bit. We're going to swap the fill and stroke. We're going to go to the stroke, click on that, and then make that black. And then we're just going to up the stroke weight on this. Okay, and just going to move this object. So, all right, so really I would like this shape here to be on the windshield layer, and that's something that's key to knowing how to move shapes. So the way we would move this shape into another layer is select the shape, and when a shape is selected, you will see a little rectangle over there. Mind you, the women's layer is this pale gray, which I hate. We're going to change the color so that we make that something we can see better. Okay. I can always change that again. Anyway, it makes this, if you have one shape selected on a layer, this thing pops up. If you have all the shapes selected on that layer, this shape pops up. This shape allows us over here on the layers palette to move a shape or a series of shapes to another layer. So I'm going to move this down to the windshield layer. Okay, so sometimes you might build things and you realize, oh, I wanted it on that layer. Well, that's how you can move it from one layer to the next. Okay, so let's actually turn off our windshield layer, go up to the women's layer, and we'll go to outline mode. And I'm just going to use my pencil tool because it's going to be so much faster. And you can use a pen tool if you want. But I'm just going to build their hair. We're really almost close here. And I'm going to improve that shape a little bit. Okay. And then we'll go to outline or preview mode. And see, that's why we got to always go back to preview mode after we build a shape, because this had a stroke. And we want this to be, I'm going to make it white, but we won't be able to see it much. That's okay. When we turn on the background, you'll see it. Okay. All right, so we'll turn off the background layer again. Anyway, let's go to outline mode again. And now I'm going to draw the shading. Like I said, you could use the pencil tool or the pen tool to make this, depending on what you want to use. And fortunately, see, I had the other shape selected, but I did not get near it when I started drawing. Like if I was right on that line, it would have just changed and altered the line. Anyway, let's go back to preview mode. We're going to make this shape. Let's see here. I think I've got hair shadow. It's going to be 40%. I'm going to get my selection tool, select the hair, do Shift M, and get rid of this by holding on the Alt Option key. There we go. All right, we might as well just do the other hair on the other side here. So let me go back to my pencil tool, and we'll go to outline mode so we can see what we're drawing. Okay, if I want to maybe toggle, I'm holding the Alt key down, Alt Option key. Now I'm not, but the reason why I was trying to smooth that out. Anyway, now let's draw, and let's go to, that needs to be white. So I went back to, let's go back to outline mode. We can deselect quickly by Shift Command A. This would be so much faster if I didn't have to explain everything. You know, if I'm just working, I can build really quickly here, okay? All right, so now, let's see here. I'm going to go back to my original here to see. All right, so next I'm going to build their skin. That's going to be 10%. Well, we could do that. So let's go down, and we'll just use the pencil tool again because it's quick for me. And I'm going to draw first this body. Now, mind you, it looks a little weird because I'm in preview mode. And when you draw in preview mode, the reason why you're getting that straight line across is because, and I'm going to draw another shape over here, and then we'll change its color. Because anytime you're in preview mode and you're drawing a shape, it's going to be filling it from one anchor point to the next. So that's why sometimes you'll see me, and I prefer to almost work in outline mode because sometimes it gets a bit confusing. Okay, all right. So now let's select those two shapes of the women and change them down to 10%. Okay. We're going to actually move those shapes. Shift Command left bracket behind. Now we just got to do the clothing. Okay, Shift Command A to deselect, and I'm going to get my pencil tool again, and I'm going to make a shape kind of like this for her. All right. I think I'm going to make this shape. I'll go back to preview mode, the same color as the tail light assembly there, or the tail light itself. Just click those two shapes, use my shape builder tool to delete that. We'll do the same thing with her. And we can always add the shape. I like it. I mean, you know, if I had a problem with the shape, I'd go back and fix it. All right, selection tool. Select those, Shift M. Get rid of the things that hang out. Okay. So now let's zoom out here, and we're almost done. Now we just got to build those shadows, and we'll be pretty much done for this part. I'm going to use my pen tool, and I'm going to turn off all these other layers for the moment and just do this on the background layer. Okay, actually, you know what? We can just turn on all these layers, and we'll just do Command Y. There we go. Okay. So I am going to make a shape kind of like this. I'm using my pen tool. And that's going to be for that shadow. And the shadows, the cast shadows, I'm looking at my notes here, are 80% black. Okay, so I can see that right there. So I may not need to go to preview mode if I know exactly, if I'm reading my my color palette there. Okay, now let's do Command Y. All right, we've got to crop this down, Shift M, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to save it because I already saved it, but just do Command S to save it. And anyway, this is what you'll need for the first part of this exercise. I've got 2 more videos I'm going to be doing, and they're going to be much shorter than this, I promise you. So watch the next video and continue.